Operation Aero started when we received intelligence identifying that a Tiverton-based male, Alan Collins, had accessed indecent images of children online using peer-to-peer software, and very much our bread and butter of what we would deal with in the paedophile online investigation team. When we were dealing with Mr. Collins, he was uncooperative from start to finish with us, elected not to answer any of our questions in interview. But when we started to look into the forensic picture of who Alan Collins was, that's when I identified his life in the Philippines and the subsequent abuse by Alan Collins of children when he did live there. I recovered in total 102 hours of live abuse footage, all recorded on Skype by Alan Collins. And the investigation identified that he was, over a 2-year period, that he was paying for and orchestrating the abuse of multiple children in the Philippines. Two of the biggest challenges that we faced, or I faced in Operation Aero, was the recovery of that 102 hours of abuse footage and the systematic analysis of that abuse. The minute-by-minute analysis allowed me to be able to capture screen grabs of each of the respective victims, which totaled 46 Philippine children by the end of it, and a further 2 Philippine co-offenders. And what I was able to do over the course of many months and hundreds of hours of analysing that footage was slowly but surely match the children's names to those that we could see being abused inside that footage, and also the Philippine 2 female co-offenders. Once we had obtained all of that information, that was all put to Collins again. He continued to be uncooperative completely throughout the process, but he was subsequently convicted on a guilty plea in light of overwhelming evidence and sentenced to 18 years imprisonment at Exeter Crown Court. And then that really started us on phase 2 of the investigation, and that was now having all of this information relating to the 46 victims in the Philippines, who at that time I was confident that were very likely to still be the subject of ongoing sexual abuse. And then it ultimately resulted in me flying over to the Philippines in February of 2018, where I was able to give evidence in court and then validate all of the prosecution material from the investigation that I conducted in the UK, which resulted in us executing 2 search warrants in 2 separate villages. 2 of the identified Philippine female offenders were arrested and subsequently put in jail, but more importantly, multiple victims were positively identified on the day by me and from the ID work carried out in the UK, and they were rescued and taken into the care of protected services. Looking beyond the offenders in this case, what was most important for me was the rescuing of the 46 children, all of whom now I can confidently say have been removed from what was an abusive and a coercive environment. And as an officer in the case, ultimately that's what we aim for. I think there's 2 sides to any public protection officer's aim, and that is to bring offenders to justice, but sometimes, and more importantly, to rescue the victims of that abuse.